Hello everybody, my name is Jacob Lemons and welcome to another episode of LemonTalks. Now in this episode we're going to be comparing that 70s show and that 90s show. I'll go ahead and give you a quick roadmap of what we'll be doing here today. First we're going to go over that 70s show and what made it successful. Then we're going to go over why it ended. After that we'll get right into that 90s show and talk about whether or not it was successful. Now, let's move on to that 70s show. All of the information in this article is supported by information that we got from Kara Hadash at ScreenRant.com and Manas Sengupta at Prestige.com. First, I would like to address what some of you may be thinking, and that's why aren't we going to talk about that 80s show? Yeah, well, for one simple reason, we don't. We just don't. No, I'm just kidding. The reason that we're not going to talk about that 80s show is because it doesn't classify as a reboot to that 70s show. See, there has to be some continuity to it in order to classify as a reboot. So most reboots actually end up being sequel series in terms of that. But now that we've got that out of the way, let's go ahead and talk about that 70s show, which ran from 1998 to 2006 and rode a wave of nostalgia from adults that could remember those years fondly and knew all about what life in the 70s was like. The show takes place in Point Place, Wisconsin, where we see a group of teenagers just do whatever they deem fit in order to take up their time. The hijinks that this gang get into, the gang of Eric, Hyde, Donna, Kelso, Jackie, and Fez. We would see them get into several shenanigans, and Red, Kitty, and Bob, and various other love interests that Bob had throughout the series all try to navigate them and how to parent the group of teenagers. Seeing them do this week to week provided laughs for all of America, and that is how they would retain their high viewership. The driving force of this particular thing is that all of the actors on set had an undeniable chemistry. The chemistry gave them the ability to make everything from funny pranks to depressing heartbreaks seem genuine. The show was successful, and it saw that each of the actors actually got paid between $200,000 and $300,000 per episode. The show ran for 200 episodes, so that means that if an actor was paid this amount and stayed with the show through all 8 seasons, which most of them did, then they made a total of about $40 to $60 million for the show. This was because it was on a major network, Fox, and had the regular and continuous viewership and support the fans in order to give them such salaries. That 70s show was an undeniable success when speaking about seasons 1 through 7. So, why did it end? The reason it ended is because the original cast did not stay together for the final season. Now, we had seen recastings and exits of supporting characters such as Lori, Eric's sister, who originally was recast for the final season, and then we also saw the exit of Midge, Donna's mom, and Bob's first wife in the show. However, they weren't as important to the show as other characters, such as Eric and Kelso. Eric was the voice of reason for the group whenever they needed it, and he basically told them why something was risky or naughty. And although he usually caved in those situations, he eventually stopped trying to stop all their shenanigans entirely because he realized that he would eventually just fall in line with the group and become part of that. Kelso was the doofus of the group, to put it short and sweet. He had no filter, and the group could get him to do anything they wanted as long as they could outwit him, which was not difficult at all. These two characters provided two elements to the group that left a big void when the actors left the show. Actors such as Ashton Kutcher, who played Kelso, would not be around for a majority of season 8. He was around for a handful of episodes at the beginning of the final season, but eventually he left. And Topher Grace actually exited entirely, only making a very small appearance at the end of the series finale. This was because both actors just wanted to pursue other opportunities outside of that 70s show, and they had become aware that these avenues were open to them, and they wanted to be known for more than just one character. You see, some actors, they seek variety and diversity in the roles that they play, and not only because it's challenging to them and their craft, but just because beating the same old horse can get tiring after a while, you know what I mean? Now, with these exits, they looked to add characters to try to fill that void, such as Randy, and even added more screen time for Leo, a wandering stoner who may or may not have owned the photo hut. The viewership drastically dropped with these changes, and Fox decided that the show had probably run its course and asked the producers to end the show in that 8th season. Fans, from what I looked at online, and it was just several reviews, so I'm not going to cite every single one, but fans seemed to express that a lot of the storylines in season 8 seemed forced and seemed rushed, all because of the new actor that they had to get into the fold with the rest of the teenagers that had been part of the cast for so long, and also trying to keep Topher Grace's character Eric relevant in the show, even though he wasn't going to have any screen time. They weren't sure if he would ever come back to the show, and so they wanted to do things like have Donna communicate with him through mail, and Kitty talk to him on the phone every now and then, just so that way people kept the character of Eric Foreman at the forefront of their minds. But this didn't work out, and it got canceled in the 8th season. Now, moving on to That 90s Show. The information that I'm about to read off comes from a combination of an article written by Sean Morrison at ScreenRant.com and then Melinda Davis at Showbiz. That 90s Show introduced a new generation of kids into Point Place and even saw frequent appearances from the old cast, some of them being main characters still, and they tried to replicate the formula that made That 70s Show so great. The character of focus for most of the show is Leia, who is the daughter of Eric and Donna, and she is visiting her grandparents Red and Kitty in Point Place, where she meets other teenagers, and they once again make the Foreman's house, their basement in particular, their base of operations, for whenever they aren't out and about doing whatever plan comes to mind for them that day. It sees Leia develop a relationship, actually, and learn a thing or two about growing up in Point Place. Learn a thing or two about what growing up in Point Place might have been like for her mother and father. The show was wildly successful in its first season, seeing over 10.4 million viewing hours in its first 4 days on Netflix, which is where the show's home is. Each supporting actor was paid $15,000 to $20,000. Leia was paid $30,000, and Red and Kitty were paid $60,000, and that's per episode. Now, there were 26 total episodes, so the regular characters of the series made between $390,000 and $1.56 million for the series. Was it successful? The viewership for the second season, which was released in 2 parts, was about 10% of what it had in the first season. Seeing only 1.6 million views in the first week and 1.4 million views in the second week, it ended up being a lot like Fuller House. It would seem that nostalgic fans hopped onto Netflix to see how the reboot did, and then gave up on it and didn't come back for the second season. At least this is what Netflix thinks, as they announced that they will not be making another season of That 90s Show, despite leaving it in a place to still be opened for a 3rd season. However, the show still has a chance to be saved. The actor Kurtwood Smith, who plays Red Foreman, the father of Eric, he actually said that the show is being looked at by other companies, other streaming services and networks to see if they would like to take over production of the show. Now, while this is promising, it must be noted that oftentimes with a change of leadership for the production team, there will also be a change in the direction for the storylines for the show. So they might have a different vision for what the show could be and what stories they're going to tell moving forward than what was originally planned. So if that 90s show does find another place to produce content, then that is something that you're going to have to keep in mind, is that whatever you think that they were gearing toward or read that they were gearing toward with the story of that 90s show, those plans could be scrapped entirely or slightly altered, or not touched at all, and they just go with the original plan. It could be anything. We just do not know. But in conclusion, we see that another reboot had a white-hot start and was ready to blaze new trails with its own series, but wasn't quite able to live up to the expectations and have the same success as its parent show. So we will have to update our running scorecard in our study series to 2-1, favoring the reboots that aren't as successful as their predecessors, and we're beginning to see why, but we'll have to go over that in depth in our overview episode. For now, I'll leave you with this. I enjoy producing this content for each and every single one of you who take the time to tune in. I truly appreciate and hope that we can continue to have these conversations that give us a break from the most dire stresses of life and honestly put us in a place to discuss topics that we have no stake in whatsoever. Now, one of the goals of this channel or page that I post on is to allow for a peaceful place where you can still be passionate and engaged in the conversation, but not have to worry about being torn down or insulted. Anyway, I have kept you on this episode long enough, I feel like. We will continue to produce content regularly, and I hope to capture your attention. And next time, above all, I hope you all have a great day.